Hello, wherever you are in the world, we are so glad that you joined us. I'm Christine Barnhart, your host for Supply Chain Unfiltered, and this is where we take a candid look at the challenges that supply chain professionals are facing and bring in forward thinkers and innovators to share their insights on the strategies, technologies, and collaborative efforts shaping the future of supply chain. So please take a minute. Tell me where you are dialing in from or logging in from this morning. Me, I am at home today, back from some work and play time in Spain and in Italy. And I have to pose the question of why is espresso and wine so much better in Europe than it is in the United States? I'm addicted. So it was an amazing experience. Got to meet some new supply chain professionals when I was in Barcelona, and then had a great time visiting Naples and Rome with my hubby. So if anybody wants to talk about how we can move Christine to Italy, I'm like all ears this morning. I'm not feeling jet lagged yet, but I am sure to feel jet lagged later. So I think we should jump right in and introduce our guest today, which is Mr. Thom Campbell from Capacity LLC. Welcome, Tom. Welcome to Supply Chain Unfiltered.
Hi, Christine. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've got a couple, I mean, obviously I have more than a couple questions for you, but before we get started in like the agenda, so to speak, why don't you tell people who you are and who Capacity is?
Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm Thom Campbell. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer, as you mentioned. I'm coming to you today from our New Jersey campus where we have half a dozen facilities. We're in about 1 million square feet here. We have about a quarter of that in Indianapolis and about a half of that in California, and we operate with a partner in the UK as well. We are a third-party logistics firm that does order fulfillment, both direct to consumer and to major retailers, and we tend to work with brands. And so think Sephora, Ulta brands, Target, Macy's brands, something that's smaller than your head and costs more than $25. And I think one of the things that we're known for is being able to scale rapidly. So we have a fairly automated environment for a mid-sized third-party logistics firm, or 3PL. And full disclosure, we've been partnered with Nulogy for a while, and it's one of, I think, our unhidden strengths.
I love it. I love it. It's a differentiator, Tom. It's a differentiator. So, okay. So you and I were actually together right before I left for Europe in Chicago at Pack Expo and an ancillary conference that we both went to, the Foundation for Supply Chain Solutions. Talk to me about what you thought about Pack Expo this year. Anything stand out? Any themes or insights that surprised you?
So first, we should share with your guests that Pack Expo is a supply chain packaging geeks paradise. It's not for
It
everybody.
is. It is. I
Um,
just assume people know. It's so huge. I just assume people know what it is.
I think it's huge, and it's also a leading indicator of the health of the industry. So that's a positive, especially for a lot of those small, innovative firms that are coming up and trying to make a mark. I also think that Christine gets a shout out for being a brilliant and beautiful hostess for the Foundation for Supply Chain Sourcing. We had a great conference there and talked about some really compelling topics around AI and sustainability, which does sort of point to the thing that I saw that struck me the most. We did a visit as a group to Everest Labs, which provides some very interesting AI-driven robotic technology, which I have a little bit of familiarity with because we use some of it in our operations. And they use it for a number of different instances. They do use it for co-manufacturers and co-packers who want to try and harvest and have less wastage of the packaging that they use for their work. They also, of course, use it for major recycling centers to sort and segregate different recyclable products. And they're using AI to visually identify those items. I was very interested to see their best-in-class offering. I was also interested that the accuracy is sort of in the high 80s in terms of percentage of
Yeah.
correct identification. And that's not the world I live in. So the use of AI and robotics have to have accuracy in the high 90s for my
Right.
application. And so I really liked what they were doing. And obviously it's a hip topic, sustainability. It's a
Yeah.
hip topic, AI, but they're real topics too. They're important ones.
Yeah.
And so that for me stood out. There were a number of other kind of compelling creators of really interesting new packaging, like alternatives to peanuts, for example. Day one, when we started the business 25 years ago, we said, we will not use peanuts. We will find an alternative. We will package your product, even if it's glass, safely, but we won't use peanuts because they're evil. And this was 25 years ago. So
Wow.
we
You were
weren't getting any,
forward-thinking.
we weren't getting any brownie points, but we also were reflecting our experience as consumers.
Right.
And people who'd had wedding registries and stuff like that. Although were we all married at the time? I think I
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And we just had packages come in with too much protective dunnage. And so I really did think that there were a lot of interesting things going on in that space as well. Then there's a lot of machinery there, which for me is a little less compelling, only because I do more light manufacturing and less heavy manufacturing. So co-packaging and co-manufacturing is more similar to the value-added services we provide to clients.
Right, right. Yeah, it was interesting when you talk about the peanuts. My first job right out of college with Whirlpool, they still had a polystyrene operation where you tiny little balls and then extrude it, or actually I guess it was more of an it's like an injection molding process to make polystyrene oriented components for packaging. And you get a really good look at just how much energy is used in the operation. It's like 110% relative humidity in that area, regardless of the time of year, because it's very steam based. So yeah, I get it. That's awesome. I love it. So and you know what's interesting, I guess the thing to ask the audience, because I see we have somebody from Nigeria, we have somebody from Ontario, somebody from New York, is if anybody that has joined us this morning was at Pack Expo. Because I did think it was a great event this year. For me, they always have a lot of automation, but there was a lot of robotics this year. I definitely think that was a key theme. And then everybody talking about AI. So, we'll kind of see what happens. I think we're at the top of the hype cycle for AI. I think there's going to be some disillusionment over the next, year or so. But, when you come out the other side of that, you're depreciably in a different place. And I think that's the excitement, right? So, okay. So you mentioned this just a while ago, a little bit about like some of the services that you provide. And I think it's like kind of important to ground people in terminology. So you and we talk a lot about like LSPs and co-pack and logistics service providers. But how important are value added services in general when we think about like the services that you Capacity provide to these big brands?
So from the brand's perspective, it's pretty important. It's always been about 10% of my business. And it's had a very strong period of growth this particular year. So 7 figures monthly, 8 figures plus annually. The brands though really need it, partly because if I cannot rework the products that need to be reworked, and they're manufacturing a product in New Jersey and packaging in California, and they need somebody to bring them together, that means I have to receive them probably and then ship them back out. The amount of time and money involved in that and the transportation risk and cost is not viable. So most full service 3PLs like Capacity will provide those services. And in our case, it's really about creating flexibility in situations where it might not have otherwise existed. A lot of the stuff doesn't come in quite so timely, and the assembly departments always ask, when can you start my job? And they are always saying, when it arrives. But once it does arrive, we have to move extremely fast. And a lot of it is just getting ready for peak season. So people do gift sets, people do duos, trios. There's all kinds of ways that we're trying to add value to the product as it moves through our facilities. Some of that is order fulfillment, but a lot of it is explicitly value-added activities. And I think that, okay, AI AI is both overhyped and essential. You're not going to get away from either trend in the near future. So it's going to keep getting hyped, but it's going to keep getting more and more important. And how does that impact what we do? Well, as we try to add more and more value as stuff comes in the receiving dock and goes out the shipping dock, AI is going to help. It's going to identify opportunities throughout the life of a product inside our warehouse where we can add more value. And I'm not a banker anymore, so I actually have to add value. I've got to do something for a living. And it usually involves doing something to and for a product and a brand. And it's got to be something that matters to the consumer also.
Well, so on that note, and you mentioned this earlier too, you're a customer of Nulogy. So you actually implemented Nulogy from an operational standpoint many years ago. My assumption was so that you could better manage some of these value added processes. Talk to me about like what Nulogy does for you and why you were looking at a solution like that.
So Nulogy is probably the single most important inflection point in the evolution of our value-added services. And if it hadn't been Nulogy, we would have had to implement or build, because we do build software, something to manage what was a paper-based product. The product offering is we run a line, we do assembly, we have a list of bill of materials, we have instructions on what we do with it, we have first article inspection, we have good manufacturing practices where necessary. And if we don't do all that right, we're in trouble. And if we don't have access to historical data, we can't repeat it efficiently and economically. And so Nulogy has put all of that up in the cloud. First article inspection, things like that are memorialized. We're even using it in other areas like returns. Non-compliant receiving is a very important area for us. Yes, some product comes in single SKU, single lot, single pallet, nice and tight and right. Some of it is inbound salad, and Nulogy allows us to document and memorialize what we're dealing with on the dock and pass that along to our clients who have to defray the additional labor, who can then pass it along to their manufacturers. And so it makes for a more efficient process, both in the value-added services area, but also in other areas where we're starting to deploy it. One of the most memorable nightmarish early scenarios was we had a very early receiving manager who was using the paper process. He left the job, and strangely, so did the paperwork. Not good. You don't want that to happen. With Nulogy, and fortunately, my director of assembly is a total rock star. And if she does leave, I know where she lives, and I'm going to go bang on her door. But she is memorializing everything in the cloud. We have this extraordinary database, and I think it's a great opportunity down the road for AI as well to see what we're doing for given brands, because these brands really rely on these kinds of services. It's not just a nice to have, it's table stakes, and doing it really, really well. I would venture to say that if you talk to any capacity client, they might say nice things about a lot of different areas of the business, including my relationship management team, which is about customer success, my customer service team, which is about tactical day-to-day stuff. But if you ask them about my assembly value-added services team, I bet they will sing their praises to the roof, because they often have to swim the Atlantic every day, the Pacific on a busy day, and they have to make sure it comes out the other end perfect. And Nulogy has facilitated a lot of that. I know every person who's working on the line. I know every unit and what its total cost of goods sold for me was. And I can produce something that I can replicate again and again and again.
So it's repeatable, which is really good. So we like to say that you are powered by Nulogy. That's kind of like our buzz right now. And so you alluded to like your customers would say like this is a really a great area for you. But what are the benefits that your customers would talk about? How does it change the level of service that you can provide versus maybe people that don't have that?
So quoting is much faster. Determining the necessary staff for any given series of jobs across multiple clients is much faster and more accurate and better. Execution is faster and better and more accurate. And billing is faster, more accurate, and better. And clients want all of that. So in fact, they want the world and they want it now. This is an area where I think in general, as long as they get to us the day before and we can schedule enough labor to do the job, and usually they schedule before the day before because they do have to get us the materials that we're working with. They're going to get great results. And it's also allowed us to scale this area of the business. I mentioned that we've had a banner year. This summer was the strongest period of assembly work we've ever experienced. And there's just no way we could have done it in a paper-based system. None of the rest of the business is run on paper, hasn't been for years. And this was the last transformation. And we could have built it or we could have bought it, and we chose to buy it.
Cool. I love it. No, that's amazing. So like we've talked a little bit, like, it helps deliver. Technology really is helping, working in concert with your operations and your employees. And we touched on AI. I want to delve into that a little bit more, because I think people like for a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm going to buy AI, and AI requires data. It's it just ravenous appetite. So, how do people prepare for this? Because I think you're doing a great job. I think part of preparation is making sure that you've implemented digital technology and that you're able to capture data. But beyond that, what has been your approach so that you can continue to differentiate?
So I want to make it clear that what I'm doing primarily is being a cheerleader and an executive sponsor. My team is making all of this happen. The foundation work that has facilitated it is we had a data warehouse going into this. We were a Tableau shop and a Salesforce shop. So when Salesforce introduced Einstein, which is an AI routing system whereby clients email us from their domain and their email is automatically routed to the appropriate team. So if it's an address correction change, it's going to go to Pune, India, where I have a team that will correct the address quickly and efficiently because they don't really care who does it. But if it's oh my God, this new inbound just hit the receiving dock and something may be really, really wrong with it. Can you please go out and pull an item, take a picture of this part of it, send it back to me right away? That's going to go to a human being with a name that they know, who they can reach out to. But all of that is facilitated by emailing help at CapacityLLC.com. On the robotics side, we tried for years to work with robots to enable our put wall technology. And I can go into that, but just Google put wall technology. And it wasn't to replace people, it was to complement them, especially during peak periods of time. And we had some great efforts with early DARPA funded robotics companies, but they'd never really hit the hurdle rates that we needed. They were probably at a third of human throughput. Now we're approaching human throughput and the accuracy is extraordinary. And people ask me, like, have you seen the transformation of AI in your business and what's happened during the years of using these robots and the AI software that helps them identify products properly by barcode, partial barcode, text, color, shape. That body of knowledge is built over time. And where it used to take at least a day for the robots to learn a new brand when we launched a new brand partner, it now takes about an hour. So wow. That to me, as a layman, essentially, or a somewhat informed layman, that's the most salient example of like how AI is blowing the top off of productivity in certain areas where managing a large data set is just critical. There are a lot of other areas where we're really anxious and excited to deploy more AI. For example, we have a chief operating officer, Kareem Fofana, who he has been nicknamed Neo because he can just watch fields of data go down his screen and decide how to deploy human and physical resources in a way that is uniquely efficient. However, there is only one Kareem and capacity is growing. One of the goals of the last year or so is to bring in a very seasoned software exec who had worked for us 8 years ago for 8 years and now is working for us again in a senior capacity. And he's done a lot of building of cloud and AI-based computing. The goal there is to take all of that order line and item data and parse it and come up with the most efficient ways to operate possible. And yes, I'll still rely heavily on Kareem because it's his operation and it has been for about 18 years. But I'm also going to want to give him the tools that will allow him to continue to compete with other 3PLs. And for the most part, this is not technology that's being deployed heavily in mid-sized 3PLs.
Yeah, I mean, what kinds of things are you are you looking for, or are there things that you avoid that you're like, you know what, that's just hype. Like we're not going to put our eggs in that basket. I mean, it's such a broad area, Thom, that I see a lot of people, they're like, they have inertia. They're like, I don't know how to get started. Like,
I think you want to find and scope out a need very carefully. And you don't want to think like, how can I use AI? You want to think like, what are the problems I need to solve? And
right,
then once you get your arms around those problems, for us, again, the idea of robots was originally like there's a robot arm and then there's the hand, but similar to Everest Labs, the AI piece that can visually identify the thing you're handling better even than barcode scanning or in conjunction with barcode scanning is super impactful. So if you're in a very manual environment, it's unlikely, I think, that AI is going to help that manual environment. If you're already in a data-rich environment,
right.
you're very likely to find applications for AI. But don't look at the technique first. Figure out what your strategic objectives are, and then come up with some tactics that may or may not enlist AI. And it's very unlikely that you will be. I mean, people ask like, "No, my business isn't using AI." You're wrong. Your young employees are coming in every day, and when they have a
Agreed.
challenge or they have something, they and you are Googling it and getting AI results coming back, or ChatGPT or what have you, and that is percolating throughout the organization. So, if you think you're not already using AI, you are. Your phone is, your laptop is, your servers are in all likelihood. The question is what's the right application?
Right.
And I wouldn't overthink it. I would think of it in terms of what are the biggest problems that my business has right now, operating efficiently.
Right. Yeah, it was funny because when we were at F4SS and we were doing the AI panel, one of the questions that I asked the audience was, who here is utilizing like AI at work? And only about half the people in the room raised their hands, which made me chuckle. To which I then asked the question, who's using Word, Excel, and PowerPoint? Because quite frankly, we've adopted artificial intelligence in how we write emails, how we accept suggestions. Like it learns, and has learned like what is grammatically correct and provides those suggestions to us. So I do think that it's more pervasive than what people think. But I like Capacity's approach, which has been, kind of, I would say you're metered, right? You understand that you can't boil the ocean. What are the biggest problems that I have? And then let's try to solve those first and then move on from that.
And I also think that one of our at least claims to fame in our own minds is that we think we're really creative and nimble, and we try to maintain that small company feeling in a family business setting, that is super responsive. And I think that creativity is something that AI is not really great at helping with at this point. And I have the great fortune to be married to an artist, and I have a next door neighbor who's an artist, and the next door neighbor teaches. And she was talking about an exercise in which she had her students do a painting or a drawing. She had them then describe it and then feed that into AI to get a drawing or a painting out the other side. And needless to say, surprise, surprise, the results that the students created themselves was a heck of a lot better than the results that the AI created.
Right.
AI is not going to replace those kinds of very human, creative, unique connections that that are our own, at least for the time being. And so you don't want to lose sight of it. You don't want to have sort of an aspirational, overweening need to use AI. You want to use it where it makes sense. And there are a lot of places it makes sense. We had a colleague on the AI panel, Conrad, who has Conduit, which is an AI-driven yard management system. Now, yard management systems are like one of the biggest moving blocks of a supply chain environment, in that they've got trucks moving around a yard. These are big boxes, But what his solution is helping to do is comply with things like California's WAIRE requirements, where you need to know what kind of trucks are in your yard and what kind of fuel they use. Are they diesel? Are they gas? Are they electric? What's your footprint? Because you're going to get billed for that by the state of California. So those are some really interesting and innovative ways that AI is coming into the industry that I'm seeing around us. And I think there are other really creative ones that are going to be very exciting in the next few years. So again, overhyped, but also, an inevitable rising tsunami wave of the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is when I was coming out of college and starting to implement, like planning solutions and things, it was, oh, we're lights out planning. Nobody's going to have to touch anything. Lights out manufacturing. And I think what we've learned over the last 20 or so years is that this technology can help humans, can augment what humans can do, but it does not, to your point, replace the full depth and breadth of the unique insights and creativity that humans bring to the table. I do think,
Absolutely.
however, I do think it's helped you from a continuous improvement standpoint, right? Like when I think about maybe where you were 20 years ago versus the types of services that you offer today, and your relationships with your customers, this is something that you're doing, but you're doing other things too, right?
Sure. So I would say around 10 years ago, we started to be very challenged by peak periods like a week from today, or roughly Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where would engage all of our resources and then some, and it would be quite a struggle. So we started building solutions, which include things like the automated put wall, and the picking carts that we have with lights and scanning, and print and apply, automatic shipping label applications, and all kinds of things that have come together because we have clients that ship more than 30,000 orders on a big day. And we have to be able to cowboy up and get it done. And so it was out of need then. We definitely, at the same time, we're trying to think about things like robotics, which were not active in the business until last 5 years, but we were playing around with it in a meaningful way. And I do think that even as a mid-sized business, having some space in your practice for that playing around with stuff is really, really important. I was laughing earlier inside because you're talking about automatic lights. Sometimes I come into my office and my automatic light doesn't work. And the gal who does all the custodial work, Elisa, who's the angel of our office and does an amazing job at keeping us safe and happy, has to come and fix them for me because
Yeah,
the CSO can't figure out how to turn on the light. She can. So I think that in some ways AI will make as many jobs as it will take, and
agreed.
it'll be different kinds of jobs. And I
Agreed.
think that's also been an important part of our acclimation process, is that we've had people working side by side with robots for a while, and they know that they haven't gone anywhere while the robots have helped pick
Right.
up some slack.
Yeah. So before I tell you goodbye, I have to laugh about your Black Friday reference. So I'm in Naples, Italy, walking around, and there is signage everywhere for Black Friday, which I thought was so interesting because I always considered it kind of a US thing. Like we have Thanksgiving on Thursday, and then we have Black Friday, but Black Friday is really, I don't know if the word is celebrated, but there are participants in Black Friday madness around the world. So it doesn't matter what country I guess you live in. You're trying to get ready for the big, end of year holidays, right?
Yeah, Italy gives us Da Vinci. We give them Black Friday. Who's
I
winning on the
mean,
trade here?
I'm not sure who got the better end of that. I'm going to be, yeah, I think we did, quite frankly. So I so appreciate you being here, Thom. I think Capacity and your team is doing amazing work. We are so thankful to have you as a partner, and really promoting how, technologists and 3PLs and logistics, how we can work together really to be more efficient, be more agile, do all of the great things that really I think, supply chains are tasked with. So very much appreciate you being here. How can people get in touch with you if they want to know more?
Like I tell people I see on the street, CapacityLLC.com. If you go to any email on the website, or the contact form, it'll come to me and my marketing team, and we'd love to engage with you for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be because you're a client for us right now. Yes, we do deal with clients that do tens of thousands of orders a month, sometimes a day. But we also really believe in cultivating emerging brands because we've had such success, with some of these influencer driven brands and some of these just extraordinary success stories that have driven our success. We really wouldn't be anywhere without the brands we work with. So please do get in touch, and thank you for your partnership. You guys, I don't just say this to every partner we have. You guys have been a dynamite partner, and we really appreciate it.
I love it. Thank you so much. For the Nulogy team, LinkedIn is a great way to connect with us, or you can find our CEO, Jason Tham, at the Gartner Planning Conference coming up in December. Before I let you leave, I want to give a shout out to our show producer, Let's Talk Supply Chain. Encourage you to take a look at the wonderful work that they're doing to build up supply chain communities. Go over to the Secret Society of Supply Chain.com. Sorry, Sarah, I messed that up this morning. But check it out. I'm a member of the Women in Supply Chain group. They just have such wonderful communities, really focused on making us better and sharing across different industries and different types of roles. I also need to thank my employer and our show sponsor, Nulogy. We're an innovator in supply chain technology focused on decreasing that friction between customers and suppliers to everybody's benefit. We do that through collaboration and synchronization. And, it's definitely a personal motivator for me. I'm really thankful to be here. And on that note, we are so out of time. And I have to say goodbye, but I hope you'll turn in next month when Eric Wilson from IBF is our special guest. And we're going to talk about the relationship between like forecasting and planning and execution. Because I think a lot of people don't make those connections, and they leave money on the table and they leave service on the table. And we want to do a better job at that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, if you are in a country that celebrates Thanksgiving, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And if not, have a great Black Friday, and I'll see you next month.